Okay, YouTube, finally got the white single-seater go-kart finished just in time for tomorrow. My son's been on me about making a video now for 4 or 5 days. Got several questions to answer, prior videos we posted, so we'll get to it. It's a runner. It does run. I won't be able to really tell how good it's going to run. We put it up against another one on the track that we usually ride on, but here in the yard it pulls the heels a little harder. It seems like it doesn't want to quit. I mean, it's not a daylight and dark difference between the two engines, but it does have more power all the way through its power band. With the polar white, or I guess Arctic white, maybe what they call this color, that's a stage 1 urethane paint. Didn't want to do the rattle can, want to put something on it that would last. If it gets kicked and hit, it'll stay on there. Still a cheaper paint. It's not going to have the UV protecting a base coat, clear coat would have, but it'll hold up. It sticks to anything. So if your underlayment, whatever you're painting over, is not perfect, it's going to kind of feel where it is very thick. One thing, if I was going to sell this, if I was building this for somebody, I would have definitely paid the money, probably $200, what I got quoted to have it sandblasted or dustless blasting. For a go-kart, it looks great. I'm just that particular about the work. I painted it. I don't want my name on it if it ain't right. So going forward in the future, if we decide to do another one, put a paint job on it, it'll be quicker and the results will be better. So, but we got the dual A-arm set up on this go-kart. Like I mentioned in the other go-kart we started with, had a single A-arm set up. End up moving the steering column from over on this side to center it up. Just welded back on just like it was from the factory. On a Manco go-kart, you have a pivot block right here in this hole normally, and your steering shaft will be coming down right in here, so you're gonna have another rod to carry over. By doing the single seater and needing the steering shaft right in the center, we just eliminated that. You're still gonna have the flag coming down just like you would. It'd just be a little longer to pick up both tie rods right here. So everything has grease fittings on the Manco is what I like about this brand. All 4 A-arms, top and bottom. Out here at the spindles, everything has grease fittings. I had a question about if I like manual brakes or hydraulic brakes and how it does, with the big block engine. Of course the big block engine is going to get out of the hole and going to have a higher top speed depending on your gearing. Not to say that a 212 isn't capable of running 50-60 mile an hour, just in general out of the box. And pushing a heavy go-kart like this, you do want good brakes. My best friend, he has a similar setup to this go-kart, and he's running manual brakes. They work. They lock the back tires up. They can be frustrating at times to make them work correctly. You just have to keep trying, adjust. The key is to use it. Get them hot, let them cool down. Get them hot. You'll start off with nothing. You won't have any brakes, and you're like, oh, this is horrible. This one was the same way. When I put the new rotor on it, I had to seat the pads. That's totally acceptable, and they'll get better every time you use them. Keep adjusting them. If you got manual brakes, they will work. They do require adjustment more than it requires me to bleed brakes. It's not really, you hear a lot of people talking about having hydraulic brakes, have to bleed them all the time. Well, you shouldn't if everything's right and you don't have a leak. So what we did on this one is we used the existing rod that went all the way back, so it stops here now, to the swing arm, and that's what picked up the caliper on the manual brake setup. But I found this master cylinder, reservoir, brake caliper, and hose for like 30 bucks off a used 4-wheeler. So I just made my own setup. It's nasty right now. I need to acid wash it. But anyways, it just comes back here. When I push the pedal, it pulls this rod on the fulcrum right here and pushes in on the master cylinder. Sends brake fluid, obviously, to the caliper. Now mine is totally different back here, where I am running a hydraulic brake setup. I end up making my own brackets and welding them on, and then just fitting my caliper however it would lay. That is a slotted rotor from Go Power Sports. I don't know that it's any better than what I had. Or just maybe for keeping them cool. We're on them a lot. We're riding, we're on the brakes, off brakes, on the brakes, off the brakes constantly. So that's my brake setup. They do make easier setups than this. Go Power Sports OMB, they makes, you know, the caliper would mount on the top of your swing arm and come over and have 2 bolts, and we'd slide this rotor over. It's a lot better design than what I have. A lot easier to install than what I did, but we're looking 150, 200, 350, depending on which ones you want to go with. So this is cheap. They work great. Manual, hydraulic. If it locks the back tires up, that's all you're going to get out of them. It doesn't have front brakes on this model, so if your manual brakes are locking your back tires up and if they feel good to you, that's all you're going to get. So we did go with the 1.5-inch header. First video of this engine running, I had the header on it. Now it's on and wrapped. So far, so good. I'm sure somebody will come out with a aftermarket header that'll be tuned and tested a little bit better than what I've went with, but it's 1.5 inches. It's got the silencer from Go Power Sports on it. It does not fit the 1.5 inch pipe. You have to cut your silencer and modify it. But I have nothing to compare this one to at this moment. I think it runs dang good for a stock engine. I miss the snappiness of an engine with a billet flywheel, a little bit more aggressive cam. I do kind of miss that already, but when you hold it on the floor, it goes. It does really well. You can hear the oil pump running in this one. It almost sounds like a small fan when you're driving around. You can hear the whizzing. We'll see. Time will tell if it's going to stay together. We'll just run it, blow it up. Maybe not blow it up, maybe just throw aftermarket parts in it if it holds together till they come out, and go from there. But it's a super clean setup. You can see the Manco carburetor. I did go to advanced, got for the PCV valve, slide this on. It fits very snug, so you can just pull it off to access your choke lever a little easier, I should say. There's the 780 torque from Go Power Sports. It comes with the backing plate, pulley. We have changed the springs in the driver to purple springs. I think that puts it at 2,600 RPM stall before it really starts to engage, which is, it just gets the engine up in power, and it allows them to sit here and idle a little better. And speaking of idling, something else that I do, because I've seen it happen numerous times, let's jump up here right quick. Instead of putting the switch on the steering wheel, my father-in-law had the idea of just putting it right here, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's right there at my hand. I can reach it just as quick as I can reach a steering wheel. Keeps having wires tracked all the way down the frame and so forth. Did do the 5-point harness, like I said in the last video. Single seat looked funny with a regular seat belt, so picked that up. It's an Asus brand off Amazon for 60 bucks, I believe. Nice harness. I think it's even certifiable actually, but if not, it's for a go-kart. It holds you in extremely well. Do I think I need a harness? Not really, just mainly for looks, but it is safer at the end of the day, so a little more time consuming to put it on, but once you're in there, you're not coming out of it. What I was getting at here is, when you start these, any go-kart, I know Cars and Cameras has talked about, especially after they get done with a new build or they're trying different things with the setup, to jack them up off the ground before you start them, because they'll run away. And absolutely they'll run away. We've carried one across the yard, 2 of us, on the back tires. My buddy's has run into his house, and he's a very intelligent, knowledgeable mechanic. But it happens, they'll run away. And the reason being is this belt has tension on it sitting here. Before I started, I always reach down here, pull the tension out of the belt, so it has a little bit better chance to start and idle and not come on under a load. But with the Manco carburetor, most definitely, when it's stubborn to start, this one seems like it's going to start better than my Blue Duramax does. It actually idles better, it's more smooth. You'll have to reach down here and just barely crack the throttle while you're starting it sometimes. Choke, not choke, just depends. It just wants a little bit of air trying to start. And really what it's doing is trying to overcome the load that it already has on it from this drivetrain. So when you pull this cable, there is a very good possibility you pull that cable and it comes up right over that boot and it hangs. See how it jumped back down in there? And when that hangs, that's 3/4 throttle already. You don't want that much when you're trying to start it. You just barely want it. Just barely pull on it. But it sticks sometimes. They all do. It's nothing wrong with this carburetor. It's just the nature of these. On a dirt bike, whatever you got it on, it's going to happen. So what I've come up with, and it takes an extra step, but like I said, it's not worth running over a kid. It's not worth running into your pickup, your $60,000 pickup truck. We have a little hook here. That's a carabiner hook. And I'm running on all of ours a switch off a Sea-Doo. It's got a handlebar mount. There's a kill switch here if I'm standing back here and want to kill it, or if I'm starting it and want to have my hand here, or what we like to do, especially if you're in a crowded space, vehicles sitting around kids, you take this, clip it on your belt, and you start it. You got plenty slack here to do whatever you want. Probably a little more slack than we need. But if it does start and decides to take off, run across the yard, it will pull this just like similar to a Sea-Doo. They have a clip that goes under a little plastic piece, but similar. It's a kill switch. It's a boat, marine grade, waterproof kill switch. So once that is pulled, it shuts it down just like I hit the switch. Well, that's just a little something extra that I've added to mine and my father-in-law's. I hate that we have to do it, but I really can't think of a quicker way. We could obviously do back here like junior jacksters and have a jack we kick it up on and start it that way, or there's several different methods, but a quickest way that I've come up with to do it safely. It's aggravating, it sucks, but the one time you don't do it, we've chased 2 or 3 of these already. This isn't a 212. It weighs, I don't know, 150, 200 pounds total. This thing is heavy. This go-kart weighs, with the engine sitting in it and everything, right around 450 pounds. There's no stopping it. I mean, it goes, and if I'm not in it, it goes even harder. So we just run our kill switch back here. Get in here to get a video of it. And we're just teed in. There's the green ground wire coming from the added switch, the marine switch. And there's where we shut it off. The wire kills the engine, kills the spark to the cool. And we're just teed in. So these 2 switches work in conjunction. I have this switch that works just like a normal go-kart, and I have that switch on the back. So just a safety thing. You might want to think about adding them. They're cheap. I don't know how long it'll last. Come off Amazon. I think we got 2 for $14. So far they haven't failed. Was kind of concerned that this piece would actually wiggle and jump off riding. We've not had that happen yet. If it does, we're gonna have to go for a better switch, because if we scare it where it won't come off, then it defeats the purpose of having it on there. What else to talk about? Like I said, the swing arm on this one is completely homemade. We've built 4 of these now. We're breaking them. The engine plates from Go Power Sports. It does have a 7/8 hex axle. I did add a center bearing. The Manco go-karts do not have a center bearing, so that chain's really pulling tight, pulling hard on that sprocket. It just keeps that axle from deflecting even more. Since we started building our own swing arms, we don't have any issues with slacking the chain or chains dropping, or not yet. We've been lucky. We've rode the whiz out of these. Shocks are just RFY Amazon shocks, 60 bucks for a pair. They're not Fox shocks. They're not top of the line shocks, but compared to what comes on any go-kart, especially these older go-karts, they are a huge improvement. Huge. I hated to spend the money on them, and I would say, hey, that's not gonna make it go faster. I almost believe it does. There's a couple whoop sections in the track, not intentionally, just rough. We can't get the tractor to really level them out, but it's huge difference. Spend money on shocks. If your shocks are spongy, bouncy, it's worth every penny. Go Power Sports has shocks like my father-in-law has for 50 bucks a set, and I think they do just as good. I think these are just flashy. I don't think there's anything better with these shocks versus theirs. And when you pick it up and you drop it, you get a good solid thud. Just a good dampening effect. It makes a huge difference. It's hard to buy those, spend $120 or $130, because you're not getting no more speed out of it. It's not going to sound any better. But overall, riding it is so much more enjoyable. we just went with the basic Rust-Oleum truck bed liner on the roll cage. Kind of matches the swing arm, matches the A-arms. It's obviously not as durable as a two-part bed liner system that you would get, you know, sprayed in Rhino lining or any of those major brands. But it's easy to change that. If it gets scratched up or beat up, unbolt it, change it. Everything had to be bent on the roll cage and brought into center, because when we cut this frame down, nothing lined up. So we set the seat in it and said, I'm gonna bring the frame in. So we heated the frame here and bent it in equally. We took 3 inches from here out. So this normally will be out to here on each, well, here on each side. So 6 inches total. We narrowed it. So when we narrowed that, this bar obviously has to be cut down. So it got cut down in the center and shrunk in. Okay, so once that was done, the top bars no longer came back. They should follow that line here and come back, and then so on with their back bars. But I think it looks fine. I think it turned out quite well for homemade, custom. They line back up with each other. That was the main thing. They had to keep the geometry right through there. So they line up and they flare out in the back. Everything is tight. When you're putting these together, it's kind of hard to see in the picture. You'll notice the swing arm kind of sits in an angle, leaned back a little bit compared to the actual go-kart frame itself. That's to give you travel up here. You notice how tight we are from the tank to the actual frame of the go-kart. It looks tighter in the picture than it is to the harness bar. I added this bar in for my harness to be able to attach to it. But I clearanced all this, made sure that when I got up on the go-kart and the suspension was traveling, that gas tank was going under my harness bar. It wasn't going to hit. If you are having issues with them hitting, once again, the shocks are going to change that drastically. They're going to give you a lot more leeway because it's not going to let that swing arm travel as far. And it's not going to ride rough. It's going to be a more pleasant ride than, you know, the bouncing and feel like you need to wear a kidney belt. There's the oil pressure sensor sending unit, kind of a sending unit. Not really, it's just more of an on-off type pressure sensor that come on the 459s. You could put a gauge in there. I don't have a clue what kind of oil pressure these running. If they're running 2, 3, 4 pounds, 10 pounds, I'd say 10 be high. I'm sure somebody else has done check that. I haven't had time. Like I said, just now I got it together, got it out in the yard. I promised my son we'd do some videos, answer some questions, and that's about it. We're gonna try to ride tomorrow. It's gonna be 75, 76 degrees in March. So we're gonna wear it out, see if we can break it or not, and keep going from there. But anyways, if you got questions, please leave a comment, post. Don't forget to like, and I'll try to answer anything that I can for you. Thanks, YouTube.